Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the orange flames dance across his screen. Another human colony was burning. The settlement on Kepler Prime had been home to 50,000 people just 6 hours ago. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and ash floating in space. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from the escape pods," Lieutenant Mary Johnson reported from her station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "Begin rescue operations immediately," Jake ordered, "and send a message to the Zephyrian fleet. Tell them we want to talk." The Zephyrians had been attacking human colonies for 3 years now. They came in fast, hit hard, and disappeared before Earth's military could respond. Each attack was bigger than the last. Each time, more innocent people died. The alien ships were sleek and silver, built for speed and destruction. They moved through space like hungry sharks, always looking for the next target. The Zephyrians themselves were tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now, Jake knew their skin would be bright red with excitement from the kill. "The Zephyrian commander is responding, sir," Mary said. "He says they don't negotiate with weak species." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. Weak species. That's what they always called humans. The galaxy saw Earth's careful responses as signs of weakness. When Zephyrians attacked, humans evacuated civilians first. When other aliens raided trade routes, humans offered diplomatic solutions. When pirates stole cargo, humans captured them, alive, and put them in comfortable prisons. The rest of the galaxy thought humans were soft. They thought Earth was afraid to fight. They were wrong about that, but Jake couldn't tell them why. Not yet. "Sir, Admiral Kane is calling from Earth Command," Mary announced. The view screen flickered, and Admiral Lisa Kane appeared. She was a small woman with gray hair and steel in her eyes. She had been fighting Earth's battles for 30 years, always holding back, always showing restraint that others mistook for fear. "Jake, I've seen the reports from Kepler Prime," Lisa said. "How bad is it?" "Total loss, Admiral. The settlement is gone, but we saved most of the civilians. The Zephyrians used some kind of new weapon. It burned through our shields like they weren't even there." Lisa's face didn't change, but Jake saw her hands clench into fists. "That's the 4th colony this month. The Senate is getting nervous. Some senators are asking why we don't hit back. Harder? Because we know what happens when humans hit back harder," Jake said quietly. "Exactly, but the Zephyrians don't know that. They think our mercy is weakness. They think our diplomacy is surrender." Lisa paused. "How many more attacks before they cross the line, Jake?" Jake thought about the line. Every human military officer knew about it. It was never written down, never officially discussed, but everyone understood. There were things you could do to humans, and things you absolutely could not do. The Zephyrians hadn't crossed that line yet. "Not quite." "I don't know, Admiral. But when they do cross it, I hope someone warns them first." The rescue operation took 12 hours. Jake's crew worked without rest, pulling survivors from damaged pods and giving them medical care. The humans who had lost everything were grateful. They thanked the crew for saving them. They didn't ask for revenge. They didn't demand blood for blood. Captain Ryan Brooks arrived with 3 more ships to help with the rescue. Ryan was Jake's oldest friend and the best pilot in the fleet. His ship, the USS Guardian, had saved more lives than any other vessel in human space. "Another day, another Zephyrian mess to clean up," Ryan said as his face appeared on Jake's screen. "They're getting bolder. This attack was different, more organized, more vicious." "I know. I've been tracking their movements. They're building up for something big. My intelligence officer thinks they're planning an assault on one of the core worlds." Jake felt ice in his stomach. The core worlds were different. They weren't frontier settlements with a few thousand people. They were home to millions. If the Zephyrians attacked a core world, if they killed millions of innocent humans, that would cross the line. "Have you reported this to Admiral Kane?" Already sent the data. She's not happy about it. Ryan's expression grew serious. Jake, if they hit a core world, if they really cross that line, what happens then? Jake looked out at the burning remains of Kepler Prime. Somewhere in the deep vaults beneath Earth's surface, weapons that had been sleeping for centuries waited in the dark. Factories that had been making farming equipment and toys for generations could be retooled in days. Ships that the galaxy had never seen could decloak and reveal themselves. Humanity had been polite for a very long time. They had been patient. They had been merciful. The galaxy thought this was because humans were weak. The galaxy was about to learn how wrong they were. When they crossed the line, Jake said slowly, we stopped being polite. President Helen Carter stood in the Situation Room beneath the White House and watched 2 million people die. The screens showed New Austin from orbit, a beautiful blue and green world that had been humanity's pride. Gleaming cities stretched across 3 continents. Farms fed half the outer colonies. Universities trained the brightest minds from dozens of species. Now it was burning. The Zephyrian fleet had arrived without warning. 300 ships dropped out of hyperspace and began bombing immediately. They hit hospitals first, then schools, then the spaceports where civilians were trying to escape. The attack was systematic and cruel. They wanted maximum suffering. Madam President, our defense fleet is still 6 hours away, General Paul Richards said. His face was pale as he watched the destruction. The Zephyrians sent false distress, signals to 3 different sectors. Our ships responded to help, and now they're too far away to defend New Austin. Helen's hands were steady as she reached for the red phone. She had hoped never to use it. Every president before her had hoped the same thing. The phone connected her directly to the deepest military bunkers on Earth, where weapons slept that could end civilizations. This is Omega Protocol authorization, she said into the phone. 2 million civilians are dead. The line has been crossed. Begin activation sequence for all dormant systems. Across Earth, computers that had been quietly waiting for 3 centuries suddenly came alive. Deep beneath mountains, factories began changing their production lines. The machines that made toys and farming equipment started building very different things. Assembly lines that had been idle since the last Great War began moving again. General Richards received a message on his secure tablet. His eyes widened as he read it. Madam President, the activation codes have been distributed. All defense contractors are switching to military production. The hidden shipyards are powering up. Helen nodded. She had known this day might come. Every human leader had known. Earth's peaceful appearance was carefully maintained. The galaxy saw humans as gentle farmers and traders who had never really learned to fight. The truth was much more frightening. Commander Jake Morrison found himself recalled to Earth within hours. His ship docked at a space station he had never seen before, hidden behind a holographic asteroid field. The station was enormous, bigger than most cities, and it was full of activity. Thousands of people moved through corridors that should not have existed. Admiral Lisa Kane met him at the airlock. She looked older than she had just days before. The weight of command was crushing when that command included weapons that could crack planets. Jake, welcome to the real Earth Defense Command, she said as they walked through halls lined with monitors showing ship construction. What you've been commanding for the past 5 years was the public face. This is where we keep the things that scare us. They entered a briefing room where dozens of officers sat around a massive table. Jake recognized some faces, but many were new to him. These were the people who managed Earth's true military power, the ones who made sure the galaxy never knew how dangerous humans could be. The Zephyrians have crossed the line, Lisa announced to the room. They have committed genocide against a core world. Protocol 7 is now in effect. Jake had heard whispers about Protocol 7, but never the details. He was about to learn why. Captain Ryan Brooks was already there, sitting next to a woman Jake didn't recognize. The woman was small and quiet, with the kind of eyes that had seen too much. She wore no rank insignia, but everyone in the room treated her with respect that bordered on fear. Dr. Sam Taylor, she introduced herself when Jake sat down. I design things that should never be used. Today we're going to use some of them. The briefing lasted 4 hours. Jake learned about ships hidden in the asteroid belt that were larger than moons. He learned about weapons built into Earth's communication satellites that could disable entire fleets from across the galaxy. He learned about factories on the dark side of the moon that had been building in secret for centuries. Most frightening of all, he learned about the pacification array. Earth's entire internet and communications network was actually a weapons system. Every satellite, every cell tower, every computer connected to the network could become part of a weapon that could reach any target in the galaxy instantly. How long have we had these capabilities? Jake asked. Since before humans left Earth, Dr. Taylor replied. We learned from our own history. Humans are very good at war. Too good. So we decided to hide our weapons and pretend to be weak. It worked for 300 years. Until now, Admiral Kane added. The Zephyrians think they can commit genocide without consequences. They're about to learn otherwise. Commander Morrison was assigned to the HMS Reckoning, a ship that had been disguised as a small moon in Earth's orbit. When he saw it up close, he understood why Earth had stayed hidden for so long. The ship was 5 kilometers long and packed with technology that made Zephyrian weapons look like stone knives. Captain Amy Foster joined them for the final briefing. She was young but had the kind of confidence that came from flying ships the enemy couldn't even detect. Her mission was simple and terrifying. You're going to deliver our warning, Admiral Kane told her. One ship, one message. Tell them they have 72 hours to withdraw from all human space and pay reparations for New Austin. Tell them this is their final chance. And if they refuse? Amy asked. Then we stop being polite, Admiral Kane replied. And God help them when we do. The Zephyrian High Command would receive one last chance to avoid what was coming. They would probably laugh at the lone human ship that appeared in their space. They would think it was another sign of human weakness. They would be wrong about that. Very, very wrong. Captain Amy Foster stood alone in the center of the Zephyrian High Command chamber. 1,000 alien eyes stared down at her from tiered seating that rose like an amphitheater around the central floor. The chamber was designed to make visitors feel small and helpless. It worked on most species. Humans were not most species. The USS Harbinger had appeared in Zephyrian space without warning, broadcasting a request for immediate audience with the High Command. The ship showed no weapons, no shields, no defensive measures at all. To the Zephyrians, it looked like a suicide mission or an act of complete surrender. They were wrong about both. Fleet Admiral Zektar descended from his high throne to tower over Amy. He was nearly 3 meters tall with 4 muscular arms and skin that shifted from deep purple to angry red as his emotions changed. His species had conquered 6 other races through pure aggression. They understood only strength and despised weakness. The humans send a single female to beg for mercy, Zektar announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. How pathetic your species has become. Amy looked up at him without fear. She had seen the files on what humanity could do when pushed too far. She had watched the simulations of what would happen if Earth truly went to war. The Zephyrians had no idea what they had awakened. I am not here to beg, Amy said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite its size. I am here to deliver a warning. The assembled aliens laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking, like breaking glass mixed with grinding metal. They had destroyed one of humanity's core worlds. They had killed 2 million people in a single day. The idea that humans could threaten them was hilarious. Amy waited for the laughter to die down. When silence returned, she spoke again. You have 72 hours to withdraw from all human territories and provide reparations for New Austin. This is your final warning. More laughter filled the chamber. Several junior officers actually fell from their seats, unable to control their amusement. One human, making demands of the mighty Zephyrian Empire. It was the funniest thing they had heard in decades. "We have been polite," Amy continued, ignoring the mockery. "We have been patient. We have been merciful. You have mistaken these for weakness." Fleet Admiral Zektar leaned down until his face was level with Amy's. His breath smelled like sulfur and decay. His 4 eyes glowed with predatory hunger. "Weak little human," he hissed. "We destroyed your precious New Austin in 6 hours. We will destroy Earth just as easily. Your species will serve us as slaves, or die as examples." Amy didn't step back. She didn't flinch. She looked directly into his 4 eyes and spoke words that would be remembered for generations. "Correct this error, or we will correct it for you." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shrieked with laughter or roared with anger. Some demanded Amy be killed immediately. Others wanted her taken prisoner and tortured for entertainment. The noise was deafening. Amy stood perfectly still in the center of it all, waiting. Zektar raised one of his 4 arms, and the chamber fell silent. He studied the small human woman who stood defiant before the might of his empire. Something in her eyes bothered him. She looked like someone who knew a secret that he didn't. 72 hours, he said mockingly. "And then what, little human? Will you send harsh words? Will you file a complaint with the Galactic Council?" "No," Amy replied simply. "Then we stop being polite." She turned and began walking toward the exit. Behind her, the Zephyrians erupted in fresh laughter. They had heard human threats before. They had seen human military responses, evacuation ships and rescue missions, diplomatic protests and economic sanctions. Always measured, always. "Careful, always weak. Human," Zektar called after her. "Your ship will be destroyed the moment you leave this chamber. You will never deliver your pathetic warning to anyone." Amy paused at the chamber entrance. She looked back over her shoulder at the assembled might of the Zephyrian Empire. When she spoke, her voice was calm and conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. "My ship has been broadcasting this entire conversation to every inhabited system in the galaxy. Your response has been recorded and distributed. Everyone will know that you were warned." She continued walking. The great doors of the chamber began to close behind her with a sound like thunder. "Countdown begins now," she said, just before the doors sealed shut. Fleet Admiral Zektar stood frozen for a moment. Then he spun toward his communications officer. "Destroy that ship immediately. Kill the human. Show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten us." The Harbinger was still visible on their screens as Amy's shuttle docked with it. The ship hung motionless in space, apparently defenseless. Zektar's weapons officer locked onto it with every gun in the system. "Firing," the weapons officer announced. The energy beams lanced out toward the human ship. They should have vaporized it instantly. Instead, they struck invisible barriers and scattered harmlessly into space. The Harbinger's shields had activated, revealing technology that made Zephyrian defenses look primitive. "Impossible," Zektar whispered. "Humans don't have shield technology that advanced." The Harbinger began to move. It didn't accelerate gradually like normal ships. It simply vanished from one point in space and reappeared at another, then vanished again. The ship was playing with them, demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't exist. Every screen in the Zephyrian system suddenly displayed the same image. A countdown timer showing 71 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. As they watched, the numbers began decreasing. 57 seconds, 56, 55. "Turn it off!" Zektar screamed at his technical officers. "Remove that countdown." "We can't, sir. It's not coming from our systems. The signal is being broadcast directly into our equipment from somewhere else. We can't trace the source." The Harbinger had vanished completely now, leaving only empty space and the countdown timer that appeared on every screen. every computer, every communication device in Zephyrian space. Zektar stared at the numbers as they continued their relentless decrease. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Fleet Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable Victory, and stared at empty space. Earth hung before them like a blue marble, peaceful and defenseless. No massive fleets protected humanity's homeworld. No orbital defense. Platforms bristled with weapons. No shields surrounded the planet. It was exactly what Zektar had expected from the weak human species. 73 hours had passed since the human female had delivered her laughable warning. 73 hours for the humans to prepare their defenses. Instead, they had done nothing. Earth looked as helpless as ever. "All ships report ready for planetary bombardment," his tactical officer announced. 300 vessels in attack formation. Estimated time to complete surface sterilization is 4 hours. Zektar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The humans had killed his patience with their arrogance. Now he would kill their entire species. The galaxy would remember this lesson for 1,000 years. "Begin the attack," he commanded. "Target population centers first. Make them suffer before they die." The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. Energy beams that could crack mountains lanced down toward Earth's surface. They should have struck cities, forests, and oceans. Instead, they struck nothing at all. The beams passed harmlessly through empty space where Earth had been just moments before. "Sir, the planet is gone," his sensor officer reported, his voice shaking with confusion. "That's impossible. Planets don't just disappear." "It's not gone, sir. It's behind us now." Zektar spun around to see Earth hanging peacefully in space exactly where his fleet had been just seconds ago. Somehow, impossibly, the planet had moved. Not rotated or shifted in orbit, but actually moved through space faster than his sensors could track. "How?" he whispered. His answer came as the space around them began to change. What had looked like empty void suddenly filled with shapes. Massive objects decloaked all around the Zephyrian fleet, revealing themselves to be ships. Ships larger than anything Zektar had ever imagined. The smallest of them dwarfed his flagship. The largest were the size of moons, bristling with weapons that made his entire fleet look like children's toys. They appeared from every direction, surrounding the Zephyrians in a sphere of overwhelming power. "Sir, we count over 1,000 enemy vessels," his tactical officer reported. "Mass readings are off our charts. These ships are impossible." Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the HMS Reckoning and looked down at the tiny Zephyrian fleet trapped below them. His ship was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to glass entire continents. Around him, hundreds of similar vessels hung in space like sleeping giants awakened from a long dream. "This is Commander Morrison of Earth Defense Command," he broadcast on all frequencies. "You were given 72 hours to withdraw. You chose poorly." On his view screen, he could see the Zephyrian flagship spinning frantically as its crew tried to understand what had happened. They had come to destroy Earth and found themselves surrounded by ships that shouldn't exist. "Sir, receiving multiple surrender requests from the enemy fleet," Lieutenant Mary Johnson reported from her station. "They're asking for mercy." "Not yet," Jake replied. "They need to understand what they've awakened first." Admiral Lisa Kane's voice came through the communication system from Earth Defense Command. "Begin educational phase. Show them what we could have done at any time." The lesson began gently. Human ships moved with impossible precision, disabling Zephyrian vessels without destroying them. Weapons that operated at the quantum level reached out and simply turned off enemy engines, weapons, and shields. Within minutes, the entire Zephyrian invasion fleet found itself helpless, drifting in space. Not a single Zephyrian had died. That was important. The lesson needed to be about capability, not cruelty. Broadcasting educational materials to all enemy vessels, Dr. Sam Taylor announced from her position aboard the command ship. They're about to learn some history. Every screen aboard every Zephyrian ship suddenly displayed the same images. Earth's real military history began to unfold before their eyes. They saw battles fought before their species had achieved spaceflight. They watched human ships tear apart enemies that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The Zephyrians learned about the human-Krell War, where Earth had faced an enemy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. They saw how it had ended with the complete extinction of an entire aggressive species. They learned about the Void Hunters, ancient machines that had consumed whole civilizations, and how humans had tracked them down and destroyed every last one. Most importantly, they learned about Protocol 7, the carefully hidden directive that governed what happened when someone crossed the line that humanity had drawn in the blood of their own people. Fleet Admiral Zektar watched the recordings with growing horror. The gentle humans who rescued his people from disabled ships, who offered food and medical care to prisoners, who always chose diplomacy over violence, were the same species that had eliminated entire civilizations when pushed too far. "Sir, the humans are hailing us directly," his communications officer reported. Jake Morrison's face appeared on Zektar's screen. The human looked calm and professional, not angry or threatening. Somehow that made him more frightening than any amount of rage would have been. "Admiral Zektar, my name is Commander Morrison. I want you to understand your situation clearly. The ships you see around you have been watching your species for the past 50 years. We know the location of every Zephyrian world, every ship, every outpost. We have been choosing not to act." Zektar tried to speak, but no words came out. The scope of human deception was overwhelming. They had hidden their true nature so completely that the entire galaxy believed them weak. We withdrew from galactic politics not because we couldn't compete, but because we competed too well. We developed weapons that scared us. We built ships that could end civilizations. We became too dangerous for our own good. The human paused, looking directly into Zektar's eyes through the view screen. "So we chose to be gentle. We chose to be patient. We chose to show mercy even when others saw it as weakness. We thought that was better than showing you what we could really do." Around them, the massive human fleet hung motionless in space. Weapons that could crack planets remained powered but not aimed. Ships that could move faster than thought stayed perfectly still. The demonstration of restraint was more terrifying than any show of force could have been. "You killed 2 million innocent people," Jake continued. "You crossed the line we drew to protect everyone in this galaxy from us. Now you get to see what lies on the other side of that line." The education was just beginning. Fleet Admiral Zektar sat in his command chair and tried to process what he had learned. The human ships surrounding his fleet carried enough firepower to destroy his entire civilization. They had weapons that could reach across the galaxy and strike any target instantly. They had been watching and waiting for decades, choosing mercy over vengeance, and yet he could not bring himself to surrender. "Sir, Earth Command is requesting our formal surrender," his communications officer reported. "They're offering to escort our ships back to Zephyrian space under protection." Zektar's 4 hands clenched into fists. The idea of surrendering to humans, even humans with godlike technology, went against everything his species believed. The Zephyrian Empire had never surrendered to anyone. They would rather die fighting than live in shame. "Send a reply," he ordered. "Tell them the Zephyrian Empire does not yield to inferior species. We will fight to the last ship." Around him, his bridge crew looked uncertain. They had seen the human capabilities. They knew resistance was hopeless. But Zektar was their admiral, and they would follow his orders even into certain death. Commander Jake Morrison received the message aboard the HMS Reckoning. He had hoped the Zephyrians would accept the mercy being offered. Instead, they chose to continue the lesson. "Admiral Kane, the enemy refuses to surrender," he reported to Earth Command. "Requesting permission to proceed to demonstration phase." Admiral Lisa Kane's voice came back heavy with regret. "Granted. Dr. Taylor, you are authorized to activate the pacification array. Minimum necessary force only." Dr. Sam Taylor sat at her console aboard the research vessel Hidden Truth. Around her, screens displayed the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. The pacification array used Earth's entire communications network as a delivery system. Every satellite, every cell tower, every computer connected to the internet became part of a weapon that could reach any target in the galaxy. The beauty of it was that no one suspected. Every species in the galaxy used human communication technology. Earth had been generous with their networks, offering free access to all peaceful civilizations. What they hadn't mentioned was that every piece of human technology contained hidden components that could be activated remotely. "Targeting the Zephyrian home fleet," Dr. Taylor announced. "Preparing selective disintegration pulse." The Zephyrian homeworld was 12 light-years away. Their defense fleet consisted of 500 ships, the pride of their military. They considered themselves safe behind layers of shields and early warning systems. They were about to learn otherwise. "Firing," Dr. Taylor said quietly. The pulse traveled through subspace, carried by quantum entanglement principles that most species wouldn't discover for another 1,000 years. It reached the Zephyrian homeworld instantly, passing through shields, as if they were made of tissue paper. The effect was surgical and terrifying. Every weapon aboard every Zephyrian ship simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely disintegrated at the molecular level. Engines vanished next, followed by shield generators and life support systems. Within seconds, 500 of the most advanced warships in Zephyrian space became empty metal shells drifting helplessly around their homeworld. The crews were unharmed. That was important. Dr. Taylor had specifically programmed the pulse to avoid biological matter. The message needed to be about capability, not genocide. Fleet Admiral Zektar watched the real-time feed from his homeworld with growing horror. Every ship in the defense fleet was sending distress signals. Their weapons were gone. Their engines were gone. Their ability to fight or flee had been removed with surgical precision from 12 light-years away. "How?" he whispered for the second. "Time in 2 days." Commander Jake Morrison answered him over the open channel. "We've been monitoring every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology in your empire for 50 years. We know exactly what each component is made of, and exactly how to unmake it." On screens throughout the Zephyrian fleet, new images began to appear. Real-time footage showed human rescue ships arriving at the disabled vessels around the Zephyrian homeworld. Crews that had been enemies moments before were being evacuated, given medical care, and treated with a kindness that Zektar had never shown to his own prisoners. "Your people are being cared for better than you have ever cared for them," Jake continued. "They're receiving food, medical attention, and comfortable quarters. They're being treated with the respect that all sentient beings deserve." The comparison was deliberate and brutal. Zephyrian military doctrine called for the execution of prisoners and the enslavement of conquered populations. Human doctrine apparently called for rescue missions and humanitarian aid. Commander Beth Rodriguez led the rescue operation around the Zephyrian homeworld. Her ships moved efficiently between the disabled vessels, evacuating crews and providing emergency medical care. Several Zephyrian officers had been injured during the sudden power loss, and human medics worked to save their lives with the same dedication they would show for their own people. "This is weird," one of her junior officers commented over the secure channel. "We're saving the people who just tried to commit genocide against us." "That's what makes us human," Beth replied. "We choose to be better than our enemies." The rescued Zephyrians were taken to temporary facilities that had been prepared in advance. The The quarters were more comfortable than most Zephyrian soldiers, enjoyed in their own military. The food was better than they had eaten in years. The medical care was more advanced than anything their civilization could provide. It was a demonstration more powerful than any weapon. These were people who could have easily destroyed the Zephyrian Empire, but instead chose to heal their enemies and make them comfortable. Back in Earth space, Fleet Admiral Zektar finally understood the scope of his mistake. Humanity hadn't been unable to defend itself for 3 centuries. They had been choosing not to attack. The difference was everything. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Earth Command," his communications officer reported. Admiral Lisa Kane appeared on his screen. She looked tired, as if the demonstration had cost her personally. "Admiral Zektar, you now understand what we are capable of. Every ship in your empire could be disabled in the next 10 minutes. Every weapon, every engine, every computer system could be turned into scrap metal with a thought. We choose not to do this." Zektar found his voice at last. "Why? Because we remember what we were before we learned restraint. We remember what happens when humans stop being polite. The galaxy is safer with us being gentle neighbors than with us being honest conquerors." The truth hung in space between them, like a blade. Humanity could rule the galaxy tomorrow if they chose to. They could eliminate any species that threatened them. They could remake civilization according to their will. Instead, they chose to rescue their enemies and offer them medical care. "Will you surrender now?" Admiral Kane asked. "Will you accept our terms and work toward peace?" Zektar looked around, his bridge at officers who no longer met his eyes. He thought about his people being cared for by humans who had every reason to hate them. He thought about weapons that could reach across the galaxy and the restraint required not to use them. "Yes," he said finally, "we surrender." 6 months after the surrender, former Fleet Admiral Zektar walked through the gardens of New Austin with Commander Jake Morrison. The planet had been rebuilt, but it was different now, better than before. The cities gleamed with new architecture that blended human design with influences from a dozen other species. The air was cleaner, the farms more productive, the spaceports busier than ever. It was hard to believe that this beautiful world had been nothing but ash and rubble just half a year ago. "Your people work fast," Zektar observed, watching human and alien workers collaborating on a new university complex. "On my homeworld, rebuilding after destruction takes decades." "That's because you rebuild the same things that were destroyed," Jake replied. "We rebuild better things. Every disaster is an opportunity to improve." The Zephyrian Empire no longer existed. In its place stood the Zephyrian Republic, a democracy that had emerged from the ashes of the old regime with human guidance and support. The transition had been surprisingly smooth. When given a choice between the old system of conquest and slavery versus the human model of cooperation and mutual benefit, most Zephyrians had chosen change. Zektar himself had been one of the strongest advocates for the new system. He now served as liaison between the Republic and Earth, helping to establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges. It was strange work for a former admiral, but he had come to enjoy it. "I still don't understand why you helped us," he said, as they walked past a memorial to the victims of New Austin. "We killed your people. We attacked your worlds. We deserved nothing but destruction." Jake stopped walking and looked at the memorial. 2 million names were carved into black stone, each one representing a life lost to Zephyrian aggression. Flowers from dozens of worlds decorated the base, left by beings who had never known the victims but honored their memory anyway. "Destruction is easy," Jake said quietly. "Any species can learn to destroy. Building something better takes wisdom. We learned that lesson the hard way, centuries ago." The galaxy had changed dramatically since the demonstration at Earth. Word of humanity's true capabilities had spread quickly, but so had word of their restraint. Species that had been planning their own aggressive expansions suddenly found themselves reconsidering. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates became safe overnight. Border disputes that had threatened to become wars were settled through negotiation instead. The effect rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. When the strongest species in the galaxy chose diplomacy over dominance, others began to follow their example. President Helen Carter stood before the Galactic Council for the first time in decades. The vast chamber held representatives from over 300 species, most of whom had never seen a human leader in person. They watched her with mixtures of awe, fear, and curiosity. We withdrew from galactic politics not because we were weak, but because we were too strong, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. We had learned what we were capable of when pushed too far. We had seen what happened when humans stopped being polite. The assembled representatives listened in silence. Everyone had heard the stories by now. The hidden fleets, the weapons that could reach across space, the systematic deception that had lasted for centuries. Some species felt betrayed by the revelation. Others felt grateful that humanity had chosen restraint. We prefer to be your neighbors, not your rulers, Helen continued. We want to trade with you, learn from you, and explore the galaxy together. But we will defend ourselves and our allies when necessary. The line we drew around our people and our worlds remains in place. In the audience, Ambassador Chen Wei of the Andromedan Consortium raised a question that many were thinking. How can we trust a species that has hidden their true nature for so long? Helen smiled at the question. Because we're still hiding it. What you saw at Earth was a fraction of our real capabilities. If we wanted to rule you, you would already be ruled. If we wanted to destroy you, you would already be destroyed. The fact that you're sitting here free and independent is proof that our intentions are peaceful. The truth was both comforting and terrifying. Humanity could end any civilization in the galaxy within hours, but they chose instead to rescue their enemies and rebuild destroyed worlds. They could have conquered everyone centuries ago, but they preferred to trade and explore. Commander Ryan Brooks sat in his new office at the Galactic Peace Institute, reviewing applications from species that wanted to join the expanded defense network. The Institute had been humanity's idea, a way to share some of their defensive technology with peaceful civilizations while maintaining their own security. The applications came from everywhere. The Reclari wanted protection from the wild AI swarms in their sector. The Palathi needed help dealing with planet-killing asteroids. The Yendari were being harassed by space pirates and couldn't defend themselves effectively. All of them would receive help. Not the kind of overwhelming technological advantage that humans possessed, but enough to defend themselves and maintain their independence. It was a careful balance, providing aid without creating dependence. Ryan's assistant, a young Zephyrian, named Sekmor, brought him the daily reports. The former enemy had become one of their most dedicated workers, translating between species and helping to coordinate relief efforts. The reconstruction of the Corvani system is ahead of schedule, Sekmor reported. The mining accident that destroyed their primary habitat has been completely repaired. They're actually more productive now than they were before the disaster. Good. What about the Vorthan situation? The slavers attacking their colonies have been neutralized. Rescue teams are still processing the liberated populations, but initial reports suggest complete success. Ryan nodded. The galaxy was becoming a safer place, one intervention at a time. Not through conquest or intimidation, but through the careful application of overwhelming force in defense of those who couldn't defend themselves. Admiral Lisa Kane stood on her porch and watched the sunset paint the sky of New Austin in brilliant shades of orange and gold. She had retired to a small farm on the rebuilt world, growing vegetables and raising livestock in peaceful contentment. The war was over. Her weapons were hidden again. The galaxy was learning to live without constant fear. A young reporter from The Galactic News Network had interviewed her the week before, asking about humanity's future role in galactic affairs. The question had made her laugh. "Our role," she had said, "is the same as it has always been. We grow things. We build things. We explore and learn and trade. We're still the same species we were before you knew about our weapons. The only difference is that now you know we have them." The reporter had pressed further. "But what if another threat emerges? What if someone else decides to test humanity's resolve?" Lisa had looked out at her garden, where tomatoes and corn grew alongside alien fruits from a dozen different worlds. "Then we'll stop being polite again," she had said simply. "But we hope that won't be necessary." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's gentleness was a choice, not a weakness. Their diplomacy came from strength, not fear. Their mercy was the gift of a species that could afford to be generous because they had nothing to prove. In the end, the most terrifying thing about humans wasn't their technology or their weapons or their ability to reach across space and unmake their enemies. It was their capacity to choose kindness, even when they had the power to choose otherwise. The galaxy slept more peacefully now, knowing that their gentlest neighbors were also their strongest protectors, and humanity returned to what they did best, building and growing and exploring and being polite to everyone they met. Because being polite was a choice, and humans preferred it that way.